Hey guys, Cameron for the new miniseries on Amazon that came out this Friday called Crisis in 6 Seconds. This, of course, is Woody Allen's first TV show. I didn't know this was a miniseries. I'm going to say it right off the bat. I actually thought that this was a straight-up series, but no, it's actually a miniseries, and I was interested in the show, to say the least, mainly because, one, Woody Allen hasn't done any TV before, but also because no one really knew what this was. All we really got was that preview of him getting his haircut, and then we got that quick trailer, which did absolutely nothing for me. So I really thought, okay, since it did nothing for me, maybe this will really surprise me, maybe this will actually be pretty good. And the fact that it was keeping it so under wraps really kept me interested. And the fact that I knew it was going to be in the 60s, I definitely was looking forward to it, and I really didn't know what I was going to get from it. And let me just say right off the bat that it sucks. Crisis in 6 Scenes is almost completely unwatchable, minus a few redeeming things about it, but other than those few redeeming things, this is almost completely unwatchable, very disappointing, and honestly is kind of inexcusable how disappointing it really is. I mean, the plot of this show, in general, isn't really all that compelling, but let's just get to the plot. It takes place in the 1960s, during turbulent times in the United States. You know, this is when things like, the Cold War was going on, and people were getting blacklisted, and there were communists and things like that. Well, our main character is Sidney Munsinger, who is this famous author, basically, and he lives with his wife Kay, and they basically are your average suburban couple in the 1960s, and one day, their life is kind of turned upside down when they're visited by this guest played by Miley Cyrus, who is in fact a criminal on the run involved in bomb threats, and basically inexplicably gets them into a crisis, essentially, and that's basically a plot of Crisis in 60 Seconds. It's honestly really hard to describe because there's not really much of anything to this, but let's just get into this, starting off with the cast. Now, even though I really didn't know what to expect, I at least was thinking that the cast and the acting was going to be good, because Woody Allen usually does cast really good people in his movies, and even in a few of his recent ones, I've heard the cast has still been really good. I heard Cat Society was good, but like Magic in the Moonlight, I heard their acting was still very good. Unfortunately, though, the acting is actually one of the weakest spots of this entire thing. I don't know if they were disinterested in what they were doing, but almost no one in this really seems to be having that great of a time. And honestly, the worst person in this cast, it's hard to pick a worst person, but let's first talk about Woody Allen here as Sidney Munsinger. I was thinking, alright, Woody Allen, he cast himself in this, he's definitely confident in what he's doing, and almost immediately when Sidney's introduced, you can really tell that this is not really anything new. I mean, Sidney is pretty much like the character in Annie Hall. The difference is that Alfie, the character in Annie Hall, actually had funny things to say, and he actually had stuff to say that made you laugh. Sidney just complains about literally everything under the sun, and it's so annoying. I mean, he is a hypochondriac, he is constantly complaining about just things that are changing, and how he is this best-selling book. So the problem is, they don't focus on the things that could be interesting with his character. Like, for example, Sidney Munsinger is a book writer, and he feels like he is competing with J.D. Salinger. In fact, he likes to call himself S.D. Munsinger just to compete with him, and he's writing this book that he really doesn't think is that great, but the problem is they barely focus on it. They focus on it a little bit, but then they go back to him complaining and complaining and complaining, and it's so damn annoying. I mean, you can only take so much of that, and I wouldn't really have a problem if he was actually saying something funny, but no, he's just complaining. There's nothing funny about what he's saying, and to me, it really seemed like Woody Allen really did not want to be here. I mean, and it's sad because he's the one that made this damn thing. He's the one that wanted to do this. So the fact that he does not want to be there, and the fact that I'm saying that Woody Allen is bad in this, I mean, that should tell you how mediocre this thing is. And Elaine May, I will say, I thought was okay as Sidney's wife Kay, but every scene it sounds like she's dying. Like, it literally sounds like she's on the verge of dying. I thought they were going to say she had some sort of disease, just the way she was talking. She does have some of the funnier stuff. She is a therapist, and some of the funnier scenes is her in therapy. Some of the things she recommends are funny, and then when she's in this book club, I thought there was some funny stuff there, but the chemistry between these two is just not there. These two really don't have much chemistry at all. You honestly don't believe that they've been married as long as they have. I mean, Elaine May definitely is trying. Woody Allen's not, but Elaine May definitely is trying, but they just don't really have that great of chemistry. I really do not think they work that great together, and it's unfortunate because I think that could have really helped this show, and especially because most of the first episode is carried on by their chemistry, as is most of this thing, but unfortunately, because of how bad their chemistry is, that's one of the main reasons why this thing is as bad as it is. However, as bad as Woody Allen and Elaine May are, they are nothing compared to one of the worst performances I have seen virtually all year, and on Amazon in general, and that is Miley Cyrus as Lenny Dale. Okay, look, I don't dislike Miley Cyrus. I really don't. I might have given her a bad rep. I might have said that I think that she, is slutty or whatever, but I'm not going to let I even said I'm not going to let my opinion of her music and her personality affect what I have to say about her in this review. And the problem is that Miley Cyrus, I think, is a capable actress. I actually think she's been pretty good in things like Hannah Montana. I used to love that show back in the day. But she was really miscasted in this thing. I mean, her character, Lenny, in general, is a very could have been a very interesting and layered character, and I feel like the problem is Miley Cyrus just didn't really know what to do with it. This really is not the character for her. This is someone who believes in communism and is very focused on the political states of what's going on and feels like she's doing the right things, and they really don't get to dive deep into her character because Cyrus really doesn't know what to do with the character. In virtually every scene, she seems very lost, like she really doesn't know what to do, and that, she's kind of wondering, why did I sign on to this thing? Where's my song that I'm doing? This really, I don't know why Woody Allen got her out of all people. She just really was not the person to do this, and she does shine in some scenes when she has this subplot going on they'll talk about, but any scene between her and Sydney is almost unwatchable. It is these two going back and forth, Sydney complaining about how she's eating all their food, how she's, staying in their place and he doesn't know why, how she's this armed fugitive and he's terrified, and that's really the thing that makes this so petty and so annoying. This conflict in general, neither one of these characters are that likable, and so much of this is built up by this feud that's why this thing is so boring, and it's mainly because of the fact that Miley Cyrus is so robotic throughout most of this. I mean, there's a scene where she's sleepwalking, and I honestly could not tell the difference because she's so dead in every scene. It just does not seem like she wants to be here. It seemed like she was very miscasted, and I really was not a fan of her. The only person I can really recommend in the show that I think actually did an okay job is John Magaro as Sydney's grandson, Alan. I thought he actually did a pretty good job. I like what he did here. This is a kid, he's growing up in the 60s. He's engaged to this girl, Ellie, Rachel Brosnan, who is extremely underused. I mean, she could have been really good in this show, but she's very underused. But where they take Alan's character, I thought was interesting, and he at least seems like he's having fun. That's the thing I liked about his character, is that he in general seemed like a character that was having fun. He seemed like he enjoyed what the story was doing. It seemed like he actually put some life into his performance, and he kind of reminded me of the old Woody Allen. In many ways, I feel like it should have been revolved around him, because he in general is a very interesting character. There is some interesting stuff going on with him, and I really wish that most of this was built up around him, because everyone else in the show is so boring and so lifeless that when Alan came on screen, I was like, alright, I'm into it, but then the second that he left, I really wasn't into it. He has this interesting subplot with Lenny, and I think him and Miley Cyrus actually did a good job there, because it actually seemed like Miley Cyrus knew how to work with him, but besides John Magaro, almost everyone in this cast is pretty bad. Even the guest stars seem like they just don't really have much to work with, and they're in it for one scene, just don't really leave much of an impression on you because they just don't really have much to work with, and unfortunately, that's why the acting is so bad. It's not that it's, the actors that are terrible, it's that they didn't know what to do and just felt like they didn't want to be there, and that really showed through their performances. So, the acting really isn't that great, but that is nothing really compared to the directing and the writing of this show. Because the problem is that this pretty much does not work as a TV show. I mean, Woody Allen has stated that he has not watched TV in the past 20 years, which is insane, but for some reason he decided that he wanted to make this into a TV show, and I honestly have no idea why. Why? Because this does not at all work as a TV show. This is a 2.5 hour movie. That is what this is. This is not at all a TV show. I don't know why he made a TV show. He should just made a movie, and I don't really understand that. But the tone in this is so jumbled. I mean, yes, it's supposed to be funny, but there's just nothing really that funny being said. And I think the tone in this show, they didn't know really what to do with it, because in general, like I said, it's not really that funny, so the comedy aspect doesn't work. And then when they try to do some stuff that's more dramatic, you don't really care about most of these characters, so when they try to do some stuff that's a little bit more dramatic and actually go more into that dramatic territory, it just didn't really work because you didn't really care about these characters to begin with. And they barely do anything that dramatic. The only dramatic stuff they do really is with Alan's character and also the threat of this bomb, but you never really feel like much is at stake, and that's largely due to the script, which script in general in this, I wouldn't say it's terrible, and I want to say that right off the bat. This isn't a terrible, unwatchable show. It's extremely boring and extremely mediocre. That is the best way to classify this script. And it's mainly because Woody Allen clearly has not watched a comedy in the past 10 years, because most of the jokes in this completely flew over my head. And I don't know if that's because I'm young and I don't understand most of what was being said, but they make references to these obscure actors in the 60s, and I don't think anyone really remembers them. I mean, the first scene involves Woody Allen's character wanting to look like James Dean, and he comes home and his wife tells him he looks like this other actor who I've never heard of in my life, and I don't really know why he went in this direction. It seemed like Woody Allen was trying to cater only to himself and didn't realize that by putting people like Miley Cyrus in this, that he has a much wider audience to appeal to, and he really didn't seem to do that very well. I mean, the writing in this in general really just wasn't funny. That's the problem. There's not really anything that funny being said, and when it is, it just feels like it completely flew over my head. I mean, most of the jokes I'm going, what? What are you talking about? Why is that funny? What's funny that's being said here? Nothing really here is that funny. And so I thought, okay, maybe this isn't supposed to be a funny scene. But then they're playing comedic music, and I know it's supposed to be funny, but I just didn't really get what was funny about it. And that immediately is a huge problem, because this is listed as a comedy, and most of the jokes did not make me laugh, I have to say. I really did not laugh throughout most of this show. And the plot of the show in general, with Lenny, being this criminal, you don't really feel that weight. You don't really feel like much is at stake in terms of characters. You're not really worried about these characters' safety, and they just didn't really do a great job with that. The plot in general really tends to meander, and it really takes a while to get going. Honestly, I wouldn't say it's till episode 4 where this actually starts to get going, and that is completely ridiculous. I mean, there's only 6 episodes of this thing, and for me to say it doesn't pick up till 3 episodes in, till 4 episodes in is absurd, honestly. I have no idea why Woody Allen had such a snail pace to this movie. And I'm going to say movie because, again, it's not a TV show. The way this is edited is horrible. I'll get into that, though, but the writing in the show just really isn't that great. I really wasn't that into it, and it wasn't until episodes 5 and 6 that I actually thought this started to pick up a little bit, and I'm not gonna lie, I kind of got into the last 2 episodes. The last 2 episodes are kind of thrilling. They were actually pretty fun, and they did have some funny scenes to them. There's one scene in episode 6 that was honestly pretty hilarious. I actually really did like the way that scene was done. There were some really funny scenes in episode 5 as well. But there were just so few in between, and this is one of those shows where it starts to get interesting and then immediately does something where I get bored again. I mean, I got so lost in this show, and it's very hard to follow too. Like, you can't really tell what's going on because they're speaking in these words and you don't really know what they mean. They don't really get into it like you want them to, and they're talking about things like fascism and communism, but you don't really get to see it. You just hear about it, and I've said it before, show not tell. That's what's more interesting. You have such a great advantage here of being in the 1960s, and it almost feels like I'm hearing people reading off scripts from the 1960s and not actually showing me what's actually going on. And that's really a big problem here, is that you do feel like you're in the 1960s in the show, but they don't really show anything that interesting in the 1960s. You just see people living in the 60s, and seeing people living in the 60s is not interesting. I want to see them affect with things. That's one of the reasons why Mad Men was such a great show, because we got to see how people dealt with the 60s and how it affected them. I mean, things like Martin Luther King, that episode where Martin Luther King is killed, or something like, something with like communism. We got to see how those things integrated their lives, and we did not get to see that in Crisis in 16s, and that was a huge problem with the show right off the bat. the cinematography in this is fine. I honestly think the cinematography looks very good. It very much does look like the 1960s. I don't really have a problem with it, and the problem is it's a very limited set. There aren't many places we go here. It's either in Kay and Sydney's house, or it's on, it's with Alan and his fiance on a date, or it's outside, and it just doesn't really have many places to go, so I can't really say that much about the cinematography. The score in this was fine too. I did like the 60s music. I was kind of annoyed they used the same music over and over again. If you guys hear the trailer, that's most of the music in this, and it's honestly kind of annoying. I wanted to hear some good 60s music, and they didn't really play a ton of it. I mean, anytime they did, they kind of just got into this plot, and they really, again, didn't really explore the interesting aspects in the way I wanted them to, and that really did lower, the series for me. And then the editing in the show. Oh my god, the editing. I have a lot to say when it comes to the editing. This is one of the most slow-paced, unnecessarily slow things that I have seen in such a long time. Saying that these scenes go on too long is an understatement. There are some scenes that fill the majority of an episode, and the show in general is called Crisis in 6 Scenes, and there's a lot more than 6 scenes in the show, so I don't even know why it's called that. I mean, Crisis in 6 Scenes sounds like the title of a stage play, not the title of a TV show, and at first, I thought that's what they were trying to do. I thought they were trying to do, like, a small stage play here, and it seems like they're doing that till you get to the 4th episode where they actually start to get going, and you're like, alright, why is this called Crisis in 6 Scenes? I honestly don't know why Woody Allen called him that, as despite the fact that he just needed a title on it and didn't really know what to call it, which I don't really understand, but the editing in general, it goes on for so long, so many scenes would just not end, and I got so bored in what was going on. They're 23-minute episodes, and they almost felt like an hour at some points. I mean, that's how boring this thing really was. I really could not wait for this to finish. I'm not going to lie. I really could not wait to finish some of these episodes, and it wasn't until episodes 5 and 6 that I really did start to get into the story, and even in that, towards the end of episode 6, I really just said to myself, what was the point of all this? The way the series ends, it feels like nothing happened. It feels like everything's going to be the same, and there's no reason to really have the story in the first place, and it really doesn't go anywhere, and in general, really just didn't appeal to me in the way I wanted to. So overall, guys, Crisis in 6 Scenes is extremely disappointing, extremely mundane, and just really, really mediocre. I was very disappointed with this. I was really expecting a lot from Woody Allen, but unfortunately, I am going to give Crisis in 6 Scenes a 2.5 out of 5 or a C-. I could not get into this, I'm not going to lie. This really, I don't know if it wasn't for me. I don't know if the show is just meant for an older audience, but like I said, most of the jokes flew over my head. They don't focus on the interesting aspects of what's going on till the last 2 minutes of the 6th episode. They have this interesting scene going on, but again, it just leaves you wondering what the point of all it is, and especially Woody Allen, who even said he wasn't a fan of this project in the first place and doesn't know why he came up with it. I don't know why he didn't just shut the concept down immediately, because in general, there just really isn't much to deal with. You have some funny actors and you have some funny scenarios, but in general, there just isn't really much to be said, and there just isn't much to deal with, and this doesn't really go in anywhere you want it to, except for John Magaro and those few, like I said, positive things I said. Other than those few things, it is almost completely unwatchable. I really can't recommend it, and definitely one of the most disappointing things I have seen on TV in general this year. Really, I can't even call this a TV show, because again, it's not. It's more of a 6-hour movie than anything. But overall, guys, my review, Crisis in 6 Scenes. Let me know what you guys thought of this show overall, or movie, whatever the hell you want to call it. I know many people probably watched the first episode and just gave up, and honestly, I was going to do that. That's why it took me so long to watch this thing. I started this thing on Thursday, guys. I wanted to finish this on Friday. I could not. I was just so bored by the snail pace that I'm like, I'm going to have to wait this out, and sorry that I had to do that, but that's my review. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Such a disappointing end to Amazon's comedies. I know they're releasing one every week in September, and such a disappointing way to end it off, but that's my review. Hope you guys enjoyed it, and we'll see you guys in my next video, which will be for one of two things. It'll either be for Luke Cage or Quarry. I haven't decided which one I'm gonna watch yet, but I will see you guys for that. Okay, bye.